måndag kan alla vänner av klassisk 70-talsrock öppna ögon och öron lite extra. För Deep Purple är aktuella igen med ny återförening och en ny platta. The Battle Rages On heter den och enligt Ian Gillan, som är tillbaks i bandet igen för tredje gången i ordningen, handlar The Battle Rages On, kriget rasar vidare alltså, egentligen inte om Deep Purple som man kan tro utan om det meningslösa slaktandet i forna Jugoslavien.
That was mostly Roger's idea, in fact almost entirely Roger's idea, and then we developed the lyrics, and it was about basically the sort of thing that's happening in Yugoslavia or ex-Yugoslavia, and it was basically sarcasm about the inability of human beings to sort of deal with love as a more powerful emotion than hate, and the fact that something stupid inside us makes, rather like Deep Purple, makes us want to go and kill each other all the time. And then, of course, as soon as anyone saw the title, they thought, this song must be about Deep Purple. And I suppose it could be, really, but it wasn't intended to be that way. And then they all wickedly decided that it was going to be the album title, which, of course, now everyone thinks it is about Deep Purple, but it didn't start out that way.
Det kunde vara om Deep Purple, The Battle Rages On. Och det är mycket Deep Purple just nu. Nu platta ute som sagt och en singel från den, Anja. Plus att Deep Purple i år firar 25-årsjubileum. Och i och med det har man för tredje gången med lock och med bock trummat ihop den berömda uppställningen Deep Purple Mark II. Som bland annat gav oss historiska dokument som In Rock och Machine Head. Alltså Ian Pace, John Lord, Roger Glover, Ritchie Blackmore och Ian Gillan. Som faktiskt sagt att han hellre tar livet av sig än återvänder till Deep Purple.
It was a very difficult decision, and I cracked eventually under overwhelming pressure from pretty much everyone. I'd spent 2 or 3 years with my own band, getting to the stage where I was absolutely delighted. We'd written some new songs, the band was perfect. We were in Holland, recording the demos, and I was so excited about the future. And Jolene Turner had been fired, and suddenly I'm getting phone calls from promoters, record companies, not strangers, but friends of mine in the business, management, fans, say, you're going to be doing the Purple record. I said, no way, no. I'd rather slit my throat than ever sing with that band again. I've said it many times. And eventually, I normally swim against the tide, but this thing just became overwhelming. It gained its own momentum. And in the end, I was the only person resisting it. And my manager, Al, said, look, it's 25 years, this is going to be a special album. Don't think about all the reasons why you shouldn't do it. Just think about, really, you should be on that record because that's the classic lineup. They said, listen, just don't get wound up by the guitar player or anything like that. Just go and do it. Don't. So I kind of detached myself emotionally because that's been half the problem, is the emotions have been running so high over the years and the pressures and everything else. I detached myself from that and I just went in and enjoyed doing it, and it was a lot easier. Richie was there, we went out for a couple of meals together, played football. John was there. He used to come down and tinkle around on the piano after we'd finished work. Ian Pace flew in for a day or two. And basically there was no interference from the other guys. Roger and I were just left to get on with it, with our part of the writing and singing. And so I didn't even think about everything that had gone before. I just thought it was a fresh project. I had no ambition about the future. I had no worries about the past.
Titelspåret från The Battle Rages On. En ganska rak och okomplicerad platta som initierar ny entusiasm hos Ian Gillan. En glädje han inte känt på många år i Deep Purple-sammanhang.
You always go back to the beginning and start with the things, your roots, the stuff you understand as a basis for songs, and you kick off again. And I realised that's what they'd done, particularly Richie with the ideas. He'd gone right back to the beginning, to the things he understood, and consequently the tracks were very simple and straightforward. And for once, for a long, long time, it sounded uninhibited. It didn't sound like it had all been worked out. It sounded really natural. A couple of months ago, or less than that maybe, I had a tape of the mix, and I was disappointed. And I thought, it's just not coming through right. And about 3 days before I came here, I got the final cut. And it's like chalk and cheese. And I went, wow, this is great. I've been listening to tapes that weren't right, you know? And I got this final cut, and it just was, I was surprised and delighted. So much so that I would say this is without any doubt in my mind at all, this is by far the best Deep Purple album since Machine Head. I really believe that.
In i hetluften igen har han begett sig Ian Gillan, som tycker nya CD:n The Battle Rages On är det bästa Purple gjort sedan Machine Head kom 1972. Ett år som markerade höjdpunkten i bandets karriär med den legendariska dubbel-liven Made in Japan. Efter den mediokra Who Do We Think We Are tröttnade Ian Gillan på bandet och Ritchie Blackmores divalater och lämnade Deep Purple 1973 för en solokarriär. Han ersattes av David Coverdale, men det ville sig inte riktigt ändå, och när också Ritchie Blackmore, gitarrfantomen, mannen i svart själv, beslöt att lämna bandet gick luften ur helt. Deep Purple gick i graven i maj 1975. Visserligen levde namnet kvar, men Tommy Bolin blev aldrig någon riktig ersättare till Ritchie Blackmore och Come Taste the Band, en flopp.
We parted under difficult circumstances, and many of the things that, you know, I guess it's as much my fault as anyone else's. I have to say that. But I think a lot of the things that I was wanting to do, we've actually done. We're playing naturally, we're playing in an uninhibited way. We're going out with a straightforward stage set. We're not going out with massive bits and pieces. It's going to be a rock and roll tour. Okay. So the only thing is, of course, the thing with Ritchie, and even actually one of the great bonuses of the whole thing is because Ritchie and I have always had problems, you know, with our approach to thing, and he gets pissed off with me, and I get equally angry at him. But you know, he does have a part. He's cranky. I mean, I know he's cranky, but I mean, I don't know any guitar player that isn't really. He's just more cranky than most. But I think also because he's a great guitar player, and because he comes up with some great licks, and because above anything else he has a clearly focused direction of what he wants to do in terms of the licks and the style of songs when he's feeling in the right frame of mind, then I think all the other transgressions could have been, or can be, not forgiven but ignored. I mean, if he wasn't a very good guitar player, and if he couldn't write very good licks, then I think someone would have smacked him in the face a long time ago for his behavior. But I guess we kind of tolerate that because he is great. It doesn't make it any less annoying when he decides to walk off stage or when he decides not to cancel a load of interviews and whatever. But he's basically a very introvert guy. He's very shy and doesn't like being questioned about difficult things because he doesn't see life as being complicated. He sees it just as that. And I think one thing I've discovered over talking to people since this project has been finished is that Purple doesn't really fit the mold of any other band that you could imagine. So everyone expects people to behave in a certain way over the years. You fit into a mold, you behave, you do this, you do that, you're professional, you get on with the job. Purple's not like that at all. I'm afraid it's just what it is. Yeah. It's like a volcano waiting to go off, you know. When I wrote Child in Time with John Lord, the world, the newspapers, TV absolutely was filled with the problems of the Cold War at the time. The Soviets and the United States, you know, the NATO and the Soviet Union was absolutely at loggerheads. There were threats of mutually assured destruction. There were more missiles than you could possibly count. And Child in Time was exactly a reflection on the fears and stupidities of that time. Now, doing Child in Time after the Berlin Wall's gone down is strangely irrelevant lyrically. I mean, it doesn't alter the fact that, but I find the lyrics to Child in Time quite elusive these days, which is why I don't want to do it every night. I mean, I don't mind now and again if the mood is right.
Child in Time. Förut aktuell, nu bara en gravsten över ett fallet östblock och det kalla kriget. Och tillsammans med Stairway to Heaven plus en handfull till, en av rockhistoriens mest spelade låtar. Herrarna i Deep Purple är ansvariga för en hel del. Saker som Speed King, Black Knight, Woman from Tokyo, Highway Star, Space Truck and Smoke on the Water. Ja, listan kan göras nästan hur lång som helst. Och det mesta går till hävderna. Det tror de flesta Deep Purple skulle göra också, men tji fick vi. 1984 återförenas Ian Gillan och Ritchie Blackmore för att tillsammans med Glover, Pace och Lord spela in den utmärkta Perfect Strangers.
Perfect Strangers was quite a good record, but we were, and because we'd been apart from each other, everyone had loads of ideas, so it was fresh at least. But it wasn't as natural as this record because we got together under all this focus of attention, and everyone knew what was going to happen. You know, there were ridiculous stories going around that we'd each receive $2 million each and all this sort of rubbish. I mean, it was totally untrue. And but there we were, making our first album after all that time, since '73 together, and by God, it better be equal to Machine Head or something like that, you know. So you're writing the song thinking, this better be good, you know. And I suddenly realized, you know, we didn't used to write like that when we were in 69, 70 and 71. We didn't say, God, this better be good, you know. We just did it. And we didn't think about falling into any conventions or prearranged radio play slots or what was going to be the single from the album. I mean, we had no idea Black Knight was going to be a hit. We had no idea Smoke on the Water was going to be a hit. We wrote songs that were just right for the band, and they came naturally. And that didn't happen on Perfect Strangers. There were many things that made it a good album, but I don't think it was one of Purple's great albums. I think it was an important album that got us back together again, but it didn't kick off on the right foot, and things deteriorated after that.
Sensationen var ett faktum. Deep Purple återförenade för att skapa något som kan härledas till Machine Head. Så skedde dock icke, utan Ian Gillan lämnar återigen bandet efter ganska trista tillställningar som The House of Blue Light och Nobody's Perfect live 1988.
I think one of the great doors that opened to me, people are always talking about progress and the sort of thing you're talking about, you know, are you influenced by things as you go along? Sometimes the great discoveries come from within your own heart. And there's two sides to songwriting, the same as there's two sides to painting. If you want to paint something, you've got full of ideas. Before you can do that, you've got to learn how to mix the colours, and you've got to learn about perspective, and you've got to learn the craft side of it. And I guess as the years go by, you get a bit better at that. And you try so hard to make it cool, you try so hard to make it rhyme and get all the bits and pieces right and get the right vowel sounds, and it's a craft. And then suddenly you realise that perhaps if you didn't try so hard, you could rediscover the naivety that you had when, 15 years ago or 20 years ago. And there's always the appeal of a young band that maybe, not incredible skills developed at that stage, but by God, it's just from here. Total openness, sincerity. And that's a lesson you have to learn. And I think when I look at, for example, the last two projects I've been working on, I'm very pleased with the lyrics because comparing, for example, Anya with Woman from Tokyo. Now, it's a similar thing. We're using a woman, in one case a name, and in one case a woman from Tokyo, as a symbol for singing about the spirit of a nation or a spirit of a country. Anya's about the oppression that the Hungarian people suffered under communism and the way that their free spirit kept things alive. I mean, I learned lots of things over there, how Radio Free Europe, and they used Child in Time as almost an anthem to keep their spirits up. And that's the sort of thing you can relate to. And but the actual structure of the song, the device, is very similar. Yeah. Very similar. And then if I look at Ramshackle Man, it was totally uninhibited. I mean, there's no thought for, is this cool or is it not? It's just, I've got to sing it that way, It's inspired by the backing track, which is so simple. I mean, and that's not far removed from things like Demon's Eye and Black Knight. It's just out it comes, you know.
Ramshackle Man från The Battle Rages On. Enkel till text och låtstruktur, precis som de flesta av låtarna på plattan. Som vi nog inte skulle fått se röken av, i alla fall inte med Ian Gillan. Om det inte varit för att fira 25 år med ett av rockhistoriens mest klassiska band. Och kanske för lite klirr i kassan också, om vi ska vara helt ärliga. Och om det verkligen är sådär jättekul med urfossilen Deep Purple 1993 låter vi vara osagt. Men vi kan åtminstone glädja oss åt en nyutkommen bok med titeln A Child in Time, skriven av ingen mindre än Ian Gillan själv. En biografi över hans år som artist, och självklart utlovar Ian många roliga och intressanta historier från spelet bakom kulisserna i Deep Purple.
3 years ago I started writing my autobiography, and I had no idea whatsoever at the time that I would be ever doing a project with Deep Purple again. And it's pure coincidence that the book happens to be released within 7 days of the Deep Purple album, the Battle Rages On.
And the 25th.
Sorry?
And the 25th anniversary.
Yes, and the 25th anniversary. It's all coincidence, total coincidence. But going back to what we were saying before, sometimes these things just, the timing is right, you know. Yeah. But it's been fun doing it, and I suddenly realized as I was going on what an incredible number of interesting things I've been lucky to be part of over the years.
So you've discovered the shocking truth behind Deep Purple.
Yes, there's a lot of truth in there, and there's a lot of humor, a lot of observations from my childhood, and bits and pieces from every single band I've been with, obviously including Deep Purple.
Ren händelse, ja. Skulle vara kul att höra Richie Blackmore kommentera den boken i alla fall. Och så här låter nya singeln från The Battle Rages On, Anja.
Anja med Deep Purple från kommande plattan The Battle Rages On. I Musikjournalen, det var Leif Edling som hade pratat med Ian Gillan, och det sägs att Deep Purple kommer till Sverige någon gång i höst. Senseless Things heter ett band som varit erbjudna att vara förband men tackat nej. Men de kan man höra ikväll istället i Alive 21.03 i P3. Här är isländska sångerskan Björk.